Now to that big story breaking locally on the deadly officer ambush in April. In just the past hour, we received an extensive 26-page report from the Mecklenburg County District Attorney. It goes into great detail about what happened April 29th on Galway Drive in Northeast Charlotte, where 4 officers were killed and 4 others hurt in a shootout with a wanted felon. Channel 9's government reporter Joe Bruno has spent the past hour pouring through it all. Joe, a lot of new information in this report.
And it's important to note that all this information comes from the district attorney's office, and some of the info may be hard to hear. As this task force approached the home on Galway Drive, District Attorney Spencer Merriweather says Terry Hughes Jr. saw the task force from his side door of his home on Galway Drive. Merriweather says Hughes then went back into the home after officers used a loudspeaker to tell him they were there and to leave the house. The DA says Hughes started to open fire. Those shots came from a Radical Arms RF-15 rifle fired by Hughes through the upstairs rear window. Merriweather says Hughes moved between the rear and side windows when firing shots. Deputy U.S. Marshal Thomas Weeks was struck as he took cover with Task Force Officer Sam Peloche. Task Force Officer William Alden Elliott and another task force officer were struck at the fence line near the home. The task force was operating on a separate radio channel that CMPD wasn't monitoring, but there happened to be a CMPD officer on the task force who was able to relay that dispatch that shots were fired and officers were down. Merriweather says CMPD officer Joshua Iyer was part of the first of hundreds of officers who then arrived to try to help and extract the fallen officers. Merriweather says Iyer and other CMPD officers tried to approach the rear of the home through the backyard of a neighbor's house where Deputy Weeks was struck. The DA says Hughes shot Iyer and Officer Peloche as they tried to take cover behind a tree. About 20 or so minutes after the shooting started, Merriweather says Hughes jumped from a second-story front window to his front yard. Officers shot and killed him. The message was sent over CMPD radio that he was down, but Merriweather says officers on the side of the home didn't get that message. As officers tried to help an injured officer, one spotted what was thought to be movement in the side window where Hughes was previously firing. So the officer fired a shot at the window. Merriweather says this caused officers to think there was another shooter inside. It is important to note that no officers were hit by the gunshots fired after the suspect was dead. Over the next 10 minutes, though, officers discharged cover fire at the window while they evacuated the injured officer. CMPD also used an armored UTV to drive through the side yard to evacuate Officer Elliott. Hughes' girlfriend and her daughter were inside the home when all of this happened. Merriweather says they were interviewed and there is no evidence showing they ever fired a gun. There will be no charges filed for any officers who fired their weapons. There's a lot more information in this 26-page report, and I'll have another breakdown on Eyewitness News starting at 5.
All right, a lot to break down there, Joe, but the key pieces of information I heard: no evidence that any officers were hit by any firing after the suspect was down. Obviously, a lot more to go through, and we'll look forward to your report this evening on Eyewitness News at 5. Thank you, Joe.